All right, Hawks, welcome back. Today we start a new project we're calling the mini wall. And this is kind of where we'll start talking about wall framing, basic wall framing layout. And this mini wall will be summative, and we'll be asking you to build this in person and also draw miscellaneous parts. You'll be asked to draw the top and bottom plate or model that in Fusion. So we'll use the same part for the top and bottom plate. All right, we're going to do a stud. Use the same stud for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces. So we've got the studs here. We've got a corner here, sometimes referred to as a California corner. So 5 studs. And then we'll make an assembly. And so we'll be asked to reproduce a drawing that looks very much like this, where we're going to have 2 parts we're going to model. First video is going to talk about modeling the top plate and probably a little bit of, I'll say, file organization in Fusion. So let's get started by going out to Fusion. And let's take a look in your Fusion setup. So if you don't have your data panel open, you want to open that data panel up, and let's look at what you're doing with your work. Now, for the demonstrations I'm doing this year, I am using this project. So I create a new project, and in here I've got building trades for this school year, and I'm going to open that up, and you'll see inside of here I have the gauge block, which we've already done, and we have the mini wall. And if I open up the mini wall, which is a folder, a new folder, inside of that new folder, I have all the parts necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it mini wall demo. Okay? So I'm going to make a new folder, and then I want to, let's see, it looks like I misspelled that. So mini, M-I-N-I, mini wall demo. And I now want to go inside that folder. And this helps you keep everything organized. And as we'll be doing what's known as an assembly, having them all in a folder makes it a little less complicated. So because I already had this tab, this untitled tab open, I'm going to close that tab. And that means that the new one that opens up will hopefully default into this mini wall demo folder in Fusion. So what I'm going to do before I get too far, I'm going to do I'm going to save this file. I'm going to call it top bottom plate. Okay, and this is typically what will be at the top of a wall and the bottom of a framed wall. So we're talking about building walls for a residential structure, a house. We also would see top and bottom plates in commercial applications like an office or a school or something like that. But the materials might differ and some other things might vary. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file off as a top bottom plate. I'm going to hit save, and you'll see right now, because I've saved that, you'll see it's populating in my data panel. There is that new file. And I'm going to close that down so you don't need to see it anymore. So it's saving, and as I work, because this file has got a save location and a name, it will automatically be saving this stuff up to the cloud. All right? So let's review some stuff. We've got a file, we've got it saved to a location, and the next thing I like to do is start with, I like to turn on the origin. Okay, so over here in our browser, I'm going to turn on the eyeball next to origin, and that allows me to see my 3 planes, my 3 axes, and the 0, 0, 0 origin point. Again, very much like on a graph paper. And if I do a quick look at the top view using our view cube here, this plane you'll see is the XY plane. And that's what I would recommend that you start drawing in, the XY plane. So in order to start drawing, we're going to start with a sketch. You can either select sketch here and then click on the plane, or I can click on the plane and hit sketch, and it should start sketching on that plane. Now, a typical 2x4 actually measures 3.5 by 1.5. So we have specific dimensions for the width and the depth, and the length is open for interpretation. So let's take a look at our example. Okay, this should be up on our classroom page, and we see that we are going to be creating a top and a bottom plate that is 13 3/4 of an inch long. It's 3.5 inches wide, And if we do the math, 4 from 7 leaves me 3. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So we have 1.5, 1.5. So a typical top or bottom plate board will be 1.5 inches tall, 3.5 inches across, and in this case, 13 3/4 inches long. So let's go back to Fusion, and I'm going to start with a rectangle, and I'm not going to worry about the 1.5 right now. I'm going to start my rectangle, and I'm going to do in the vertical. So you see right now the 2.9 is highlighted. That I'm going to want to make 3.5 inches, and then I'm going to hit Tab, and you'll see it goes down to the other dimension for our rectangle. I'm going to make this 13.75, and I'm going to hit Enter. And it should now have a rectangle of the approximate size of our 2x4 for our top and bottom plate. And I'm going to finish the sketch. And then I'm going to look at it in the house or the isometric view. Okay, so 3.5 inches across, 13 3/4 inches long, and now I want to give it its third dimension, which would be its thickness or its height. So I'm going to go and extrude that shape. And I'm going to extrude it. So if it's already found the shape, it's already selected. If it wasn't there, I would need to identify it by selecting it. And we're going to extrude this, in this case, up, which I like. And we're going to go 1.5. Okay, so you can see here it's filling in the information here, or I can do it in the window. And let's do 1.5 inches up, and it should be a new body. And we'll say OK. Now, that should look like a basic piece. I'm going to hide the origin point because I don't need to see it anymore. And just like we did back on the last activity, we might want to give it a physical material. So that was under Modify, Physical Material, and that should bring up this window. I'm going to go down to where it says Wood. I'm going to open that up. And I'm looking for, I guess, some sort of pine. That's relatively common. Pine or a fir, Douglas fir, 4-dimensional lumber, depending upon where you are in the country. And I'm going to pick one of these pines. I'm just going to pick the top pine for now. And I'm going to left click and drag that on. And now I've got a wood material applied to my top and bottom plate because I'll use this file for the same item. And I'm just going to do a Control S. Okay. And I'm going to say modeled with material. Okay. Now, you don't have to give a save, if I can spell M-A-T-E-R-M-A-T-E-R-I-A-L. Okay. You don't have to give it a specific name. However, since we're talking about expanding our knowledge, you'll see here in my data panel, when I'm looking at this, we now have V1 and V2. And you'll see here V1 was when I initially saved it where there was nothing. And V2, you'll see it's modeled with material. So the name that I gave it is actually makes sense. So if I was doing more involved projects, I might want to give some names during these saves so I can kind of know where I was at when I saved that particular file. All right. So we've got our top and bottom plate saved. That's the extent of this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about modeling the stud, which again shouldn't be too bad. See you in the next video.